Hi, and welcome to Origin of Concepts. In this episode, I'll give you the real inspiration source and origin of the Mayan Pakal sarcophagus inscription, the lid of the deceased Mayan king. And this is also known as the Mayan astronaut god in alternative environments. But let's see what's up and down in this on this coffin lid. The sarcophagus lid of Keinish Janab Pakal, or the Pakal the Great, is a masterpiece of classic Mayan art, found within the Temple of the Inscriptions in Palenque in Mexico. The coffin lid is carved with complex iconography depicting the king's journey from death to rebirth and his place within the Mayan cosmos. And cosmos is the keyword to understand the symbolism, which is made with inspiration of the Milky Way center, of course. And that's why I'm here. So let's check in at the Milky Way center. Okay, and here in the corner you see the image of the coffin lid and all the inscriptions, and then I'll go step by step and see if I can give an explanation. The central image on the lid shows Pakal at the moment of death, suspended in a peculiar posture that denotes rebirth. And let me get my pen here so I can start drawing. First of all, Pakal is visualized by the stripe shadow and the disk, so to speak. What's inside the Milky Way center here? The description is all made by this area, and I'll get into that in a moment. And what you have to imagine in the entire image is that he is ascending or traveling into the Milky Way center here. So if you put into your brain that the striped shadow here is like the deceased Pacal on the earthly realm on his way into the center of the Milky Way, then we got a great foundation to understand the rest of the story. And the first important indicator here is Pakal is positioned falling backward beside a cross-shaped world tree, which connects the heavens and the earthly realm. And let me show you here. Normally, the lid should be horizontal, but let me try to illustrate it here. You can see he's leaning backward instead of straight. And this is used in very many myths around the world, because it's an indicator for death of physical life, or everything physical. And then he is standing or lying next to this cross here. And let's see here, yeah. The falling backward is an allegory of the striped shadow falling backward, the passing of earthly life. And if we make a horizontal line here in the Milky Way center. Then you can see the striped shadow here is falling backwards or fall aside or falling over, whatever. They use the exactly same analogy in when Jesus dies on the cross and they put him into the cave. You know, the stone in front of the cave is falling aside. That's exactly the same, metaphor. The striped shadow, the falling rock or the falling man. Yeah, and this is also heavily related to the tilting of the Milky Way in its annual cycle. So when the Milky Way is falling, you know, the spirit is falling, so to see, or so to say. And when the Milky Way is racing back up, you know, spirit rise. So that's very related to the Milky Way. And since we are in the Milky Way center, yeah, it all makes sense. The cross in shape of a world tree here is the crossing point between the mortal world and the divine world. And it's also it's visualized by the dark shadows in the Milky Way center crossing above the disk. So you have to imagine this is the earthly section, and the Milky Way, the other shadows here is the divine line. So here we got the cross, and in the middle of the cross we got the center of the Milky Way, the golden disk with the disk light, the divine disk light. So this is the end goal for Pacal. He must go there on the crossing point, like in Christianity and everywhere. This is the crossing point. All right, and then an important indicator, because it's also a life tree. And let me sketch up the light tree, because the life tree, or the world tree, sorry, in this Mayan myth, it's a world tree. And the tree itself is also the striped shadow. This is the trunk of the tree into heaven. And then we got this is typical, the crown of the tree, depending on the myth. But the tree is also the Milky Way center, or the striped shadow is the main tree. It's also the tree of life and the tree of good and evil we see here. All right, and just to spice it up a little bit, inside the tree we also got the swastika, which is also a crossing symbol. So the cross is the crossing point here in the tree. And please note that in the tree we got the serpent here. Let me outline it for you here. Here the green line is like the serpent in the crossing area, and the serpent is of course the striped shadow too here. The same serpent as in the biblical myth of Adam and Eve in the tree. Okay, and let's move on. Pakal is depicted wearing the attributes of the tonsured maize god, particularly a turtle shield ornament on his breast. Let me clear the board here. We see the turtle here on his chest. And this symbolizing his transformation and future resurrection, similar to the planting and sprouting of corn. And let's start from behind, because the sprouting and corn is an allegory for the corn here. This is the corn in the Milky Way center, and the stripes is like the texture of the corn. So, and this area is always the planty area in every single myth. And then we got the turtle shield, which is very, very important, because there is you can find two turtles in the Milky Way center, and since it sits on his chest, let me illustrate here. The chest of Pacal is, of course, the entire Milky Way center here. And on his chest, we got the turtle. The turtle is the striped shadow here. This is the crescent. And if we follow the outline here, we got the turtle shield on his chest. And that, and let me read on here. I think I got some. No. I mean, the turtle shield in the Mayan mythology is like the floating earth in heaven. And the striped shadow here is always the earth, the mortal realm. So there we got the connection. And you can see the pink line here. This is also the turtle shield in other myths. But in this specific myth, the turtle shield is the striped shadow. Yeps, and we go on here. The underworld entrance directly beneath Pakal, or Pakal, is this feller here, like this. And let me right away outline the skull here. The underworld entrance directly beneath Pakal is the skeletal head of a celestial two-headed serpent, framing his entry into the realm of the dead. And first of all, the skeleton head, or the skull, symbolizes the area around surrounding the disc, which is always the skull cap. Let me outline it here. This area is the skull area. And then it could be the jaws here, and but it's the skull. So I'll just leave it here. We can make some skull eyes here just to indicate it. So here we got it. And the jaws of the serpent that is eating Pakal is the shadows here. The great mouth in the Milky Way center, or the serpent mouth. And let's outline the Pakal here. Pakal is lying here. The stripes in the striped shadow is the analogy of Pakal. So here we see the serpent there eating the man, which is also heavy used by the Aztecs and other Mesoamerican cultures. Remember that, a serpent, or a man in a serpent mouth. Okay, let's go on here. And then the surrounding band around the lid of the coffin. We find the 6 heads or noblemen or ancestors framing Pakal within his ancestral lineage. So this is like his, his heritage. And this is very important because there's 6 of them. And let me clean the board here. And the 6 noblemen or ancestors is of course the 6 stripes here in the Milky Way center, because this is always the ancestors, or the it could also be the offspring, but also always the familiar crowd, or yeah. And of course, the golden disc here will be Pacal, as the next in line, so to speak, because we go from the mortal realm into the underworld or into the spirit world. And what else do I got to that here? Yes, and here comes the bingo, because all of the ancestors are reborn as trees. Wow. Visualized by the striped shadow, of course, because the striped shadow is the trees. Or if they are, if we take those ancestors, and decode them individually, they could all be part of the big tree here in the Milky Way center. And then different aspects of the Milky Way center is used, to explain various behaviors and actions and whatever. Okay. And inside the sarcophagus, which, by the way, this is the Milky Way center is the sarcophagus. Oh, let me see if I can say it right here. Sarcophagus. Yeah, I learned it. Pacal was found wearing a spectacular jade death mask and jewelry, also made by jade, and was seen by the Maya as a symbol of life and vegetation. Yeah. So let me explain you a little bit about jade, why jade is so important in the Mayan culture. I have a jade color here, because jade color is a symbol of the jade-colored area above the disk. This is the jade-colored area in the Milky Way center. And in many, many myths around the world, this is also the pure spirit, which, when set into action, is manifesting as the golden disc light here. And in this case, we can make it vice versa. The spirit is going into the pure spirit. The spirit of Pakal goes into pure spirit, into the afterlife, or the infinity. So this is the jade. And when you wear jade if you have jade jewelry, it's depicted by, or it represents basically the stripes here and the striped shadow. That's the different kinds of armbands and stuff like that, necklace and. All right, let's see what we else got here. Yeah, and while we're talking about jewelry, there is in the specific area around the striped shadow here, we got a lot of colored stars, which is often used to represent a jewelry and also rainbows and everything related to colors. But the jade is the jade-colored area above the disc here. And this is also known as the emerald green and the azura colors in other myth around the world. So it can both be green and bluish, and but that's this specific area. Okay, and now you should know what this picture here is showing to us. No more myth. Pakal, is ascending into the Milky Way center, basically, eaten by the divine serpent in the big tree. So that should manage. But there are alternative interpretations of this tablet, and I think they are basically more famous than what I just told you now, or what the archaeological explanations are, because this tablet is also the ancient astronaut tablet, and let me talk a little about that. The complex mechanical looking and detailed carving has led to a widely popularized, though inaccurate, pseudo-archaeological theory of an ancient astronaut or a king operating a rocket or spacecraft. You people think he got the foot on the... let me get a color here. He got the foot on the speeder down here, and he's touching some control panels, and this is the rocket, and this is the engine down here. So that's the alternative version. And this astronaut theory was popularized by Eric von Däniken, which has just passed away. Rest in peace to Eric. He wrote in his book Chariots of the Gods, and then it was like refreshed in the Ancient Alien TV series. But please, this make no sense at all, so don't listen to this. This is just that's great entertainment, and to be honest, I saw those TV series myself 20 years ago or something like that, or 10 years ago, and I was, of course, investigated before I saw the similarity in the Milky Way, like all other cultures. Okay, enough is enough. Now you know where to find the Pakal in the sky. I'm sure he's sitting he's still lying there in the center of the Milky Way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with a new video. Until then, take care. Bye.